Good morning, everybody. You're tuned to Computers 2K now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next couple of hours, along with Spence.
Good morning.
Good
Are
morning.
we here yet?
We're here.
Are we here yet?
And Nick is here.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. And Gal is here.
Good morning.
Morning. Maybe Katie will join us. I don't know. I didn't hear anything. Our number is 919-518-9773. Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by vMix Software and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Geek. Yep, a new week starting.
Technically. Well, it depends on how you do your math.
I forgot to pay for my new week. What do I do?
Okay.
I mean, I didn't put in my weekly payment
Yeah,
yet.
we can't have that. No, we can't have. So what's going on?
Not a lot, I guess.
Oh, so after last week's program,
Yeah.
I discussed my purchase of a cheap Android tablet to use as an e-reader. And also during that program, I saw a special for the Amazon Kindle Fire tablet that was essentially the same price. So I traded up, did a return on my cheap Android tablet, which did the job more than fine, for an Amazon Kindle Fire 8, for about $10 or $15 more. And running that, it's they make some tools available to de-Amazon your Amazon Fire tablet, and there are some of them work, some of them don't. Create a real nightmare. So just be advised if you're going to be running a Kindle tablet and want to declutter it and install a bunch of stuff. There could be problems with it. So,
Hmm.
like for
Well,
example,
I know of a tool that is used generally and does everything for you.
that's what I used, and some stuff worked great. You're talking about the Fire Toolkit program.
I think
Yeah,
that's the name. Yeah.
that it worked and did a lot of things. There was some problems with installing the Google Play ecosystem, which was noted in their release that on the newer Amazon Fire 8
Oh, okay.
2022, there is some problems with it. It's kind of hit or miss. So I followed through on that, and then I could not get a single app to open on the device. Everything would immediately crash. It wouldn't matter what the app was. The Amazon app to the only thing I could get open was settings. Everything else would open, click up, immediately crash, restarts, all of that. It was just a mess. Plus I think that may have been something to do with the launcher. I'm not sure. All I know is that it was
But
just a royal
question:
pain.
why you need the Google app ecosystem?
So I realized I didn't. So when I did my factory refresh of it, the app that I wanted, which is a free ebook app, I just downloaded the APK for it, and that was my solution. I don't need the app store.
Okay, so this is for anyone with an Android, not just Fire TV
Mhm.
tablets or anything like that. There is a complete alternative to the Play Store to access the Play Store without Play services.
Yes.
It's called Aurora Store.
Mhm.
You log in with your Google account into it. You can without, but you can with the Google account. And then you can download anything and you can filter out any apps that require the Google ecosystem. Just beware that that exists. It ties to something I'm going to talk later. So
Yeah,
that's
and in this case, since I'm not really using it as like a full-fledged tablet, I'm really just using it for single purpose, in the case reading ebooks. Once I got the APK for my ebook app, um, it really wasn't a problem. Now, I did try to manually then sideload all of the Google Play services again, just because I was testing with it, and I think it's something with this specific version of the device that is not yet has not yet been squared away, because I'm not the only one with the issue. But yeah. So Fire tablet, buy it on sale. I bought it for how much was the order? It was 59.99 plus about $5 worth of tax, so 65.
so my experience with Fire Tablet is very similar to you. Mine is older, and by the time I dealt with it, all of the maturity of the alternative apps and all that, they were already solved. So I didn't experience the same uh, trouble that you described. But through that, I learned about the alternatives, the options of how is it to run something Android like, right? Because it's not, it's Android based. Thing is, because Android development is continuing, right? And basically Amazon forked away, then the development, probably the Amazon Android implementation is probably the only other large competitive to Android as an OS. They have their own app system that actually contains. But if you take a closer look, you see that most software producers, if it's not games, they don't really bother with the Android ecosystem. Mostly it's games.
Yeah.
Um, so the solution is to use Android as you did, and I doubt that we'll continue to see rapid development of the Google Play package for Android keep up with Google's updates. So yeah, that's a loss. But there is one alternative, one very interesting alternative that might actually be the case where we are going to see the Google app package being updated and work in an environment like the Android one, and that's Windows 11.
Mm.
Windows 11 has the Android subsystem for, I think it's called Windows Subsystem for Android. Yeah. And the way you install it is you open the Windows Store and you install Amazon App Store. So you get, and what they do there is they've developed um, an emulation layer, basically a sort of virtualization layer that runs all of these ARM-based APKs on Windows 11 on an Intel processor, and it works surprisingly well. It's the first thing you need to work around is if you're not interested in the games that the Amazon App Store pushes on you, is you would want to sideload another loader, another sorry, not loader, another app store, right?
Can I
And
jump in though briefly?
yeah,
You
go ahead.
it, depending on what you're doing with the device, you don't necessarily need an app store. There are so many of these APK websites. Now there are some that are not legitimate, but there's plenty of legit websites. If you only have an iPhone and you've never really touched Android, the way that you can install apps on Android is you download them like an exe on your computer and install
Correct.
them that way. So if you just need to load a couple of apps and you're not going to be constantly installing things and you just need it to do, let's say you're putting it in your kitchen to just have as a cookbook or something like that. Find your cookbook app on an APK market website, download it, and you don't even need a store, correct?
Correct. But then again, you do want that app to update when there's updates, right?
Now
especially for
that is
security updates,
that
right?
is true. I didn't think about
So
updates.
you would want something to
Hmm.
manage the downloading and in case you want to search something to find it quickly. So there are solutions that are very simple. So there's a single app that you need to sideload. The rest, it does it for you, including updating itself,
What
right?
is this?
So
What is this app marketplace called?
Aurora, it's not a marketplace. It's the Play Store. It's just an alternative interface to it.
But you can
And
install it without Google Play services, or it needs Google Play services.
no, it does not require. And not only that is when you search for apps, you can actually filter out um, apps that require Google Apps services, Google Play services. More to it, it's the only Play Store, the Android apps Play Store, that has an option of showing you free, right, in the filters and no ads and no payments in the. It actually allows you to. I have it on my Android phone, right? I sideloaded it to my Android phone and I use it there to download some of the apps, especially if I'm looking for something new and I want something that is actually free, that is actually open source based, right? Or something. I get a very diminished list that I can sift through and figure out if the app is okay for me. So
Now
Aurora,
that's not Google create, right?
it is, so Google doesn't create the app,
No, no,
but
I'm
it uses
saying the
Google's
store,
own
the
store.
Aurora is not a Google app.
No,
It's
of
not a
course
Goo
not. No, it's an open source group that
So,
does it.
and what do they do? They have hooks into the, uh, actual Play Store that they get the information from
Yeah, you
on the
download the
fly?
APK from the Play Store. They're using the same interface that the Play Store uses to connect back to Google's backend.
Hmm,
Look, Google
interesting.
is has an API, right? That API is being used by Google.
Yeah.
Uh, and so this app store is masquerading itself as the Google Play Store.
What is F-Droid and its connection to this? Because everybody's
Okay.
saying they had to install F-Droid and
You don't
Aurora.
need F-Droid, and I'll explain. F-Droid is terrific on its own. F-Droid is the is an alternative app store based. It's an open source application, and it F-Droid specifically and their repository of apps is um, um, is designed for open source applications. The main problem with Play Store, to publish something in the Play Store, you need to register there. It costs money. You need to you need to keep that subscription updated. And if you wanna post anything, right, you need to adhere to Google's strict terms, and they are getting stricter and stricter.
Of course.
We advance, right? And F-Droid is a completely open market. First of all, the F-Droid repo has a requirement that all of the software there be open source, but you can load alternative repositories there, and there are some personally curated, privately curated uh, um, repositories out there. And by the way, Aurora creates the best F-Droid client called Aurora Droid. So they have
Yes.
Aurora Store and Aurora Droid. Those are two separate applications. And Aurora Droid is their implementation of F-Droid. And the nice thing about their F-Droid implementation, it already comes packed in with a list of repository that you can just choose a check mark and say, I want to use these. So it's the most convenient application to access F-Droid's ecosystem. And for your particular situation, Nick, I would actually start with the Aurora Droid. Using Aurora Droid, you can install Aurora Store if you really want to, and if that app is only available on the Play Store, for example. And these two in tandem, they are probably the best solution for anyone who'd like to, loosen their grip a bit by Google, right? By the limitations of what they enforce. So definitely, that's what I have installed on my Windows 11. And one of the things I've installed one of the things I'm using Windows 11, by the way, the Android ecosystem there is I use um, a second factor authentication application called Authy, which syncs two factor one time passwords generation across multiple devices. And theoretically, that application requires Google Play services, but it needs it only in the back end for certain communication, mostly push services. So push services is, let's say, the server wants to notify you something, right? Uh, push services by Google Play is what allows these apps to receive notification from afar without setting, a complex infrastructure of uh, of uh, of services that your app will need to connect to. Your app always, when it has Google Play services, phones back to Google to check what's going on, and um, you anyone using Google Play services can piggyback that service, right? Or a fee, of course, but they can do that. So I don't need that aspect. And as long as the application loads, gives me a warning, hey, this application won't function without Google Play services, but it does function. It gives me the codes that I need. It syncs with the rest of my devices for the codes. So it does what I need it to. I don't need it to get a notification, so I don't care about that. So that's one. Things I can't run banking apps, at least not the ones that I want, right? Because those require Google Play services, and I'm guessing they're doing it to sign and check identities and stuff like that, and using services that Google provide to secure some apps. Uh, the moment I'll be able to install an alternative Google Play services layer on the Windows one, then yes, I would prefer to use some of the banking apps on the Google from the Google infrastructure compared to using their website, uh, because then I can, save the login information into the installation and stuff like that, and I'll just need to use a PIN. It'll be a lot easier to monitor things. I can have multiple windows, and the resource that they consume is usually rather minimal. So stuff like that. It's a very if you have Windows 11, you have a beefy enough machine that can run VMs in the background, then I would recommend playing a bit with the system for Windows, whether it's the Android or the Linux one.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, really nice.
All right.
Who knew Microsoft is going to be this great flourishing platform for open source initiatives and fantastic integration with the rest of the world, right?
You know where that you joke and laugh about that, where that's gonna come into play big time is this current acquisition that they're going through with Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
You've got, now it's one of those stupid governments over in Europe. I think it's the EU that is, they've got to go through a bunch of regulating bodies, including in the United States, the United Kingdom, EU. There's a commission in Canada. They're going to have to go through all of this, and I think they can point to. And I'm not saying they did it for this reason, but they can point and say, "Here, look at all of this stuff that we have done as a corporation to, Linux subsystem and all these various things that we've done." Making our games available on all these different platforms through Xbox Marketplace. How are you going to claim that we're a monopoly? How are you going to claim that we're not, that we're just taking our toys and running home with them? There's just no evidence to really back that up. So maybe that was a long term play.
I was
And
just
if that
thinking,
was the case, well done.
yeah, that
Maybe.
I can't help but think that. Yeah.
Well, it's this, it's, it's not it's been this way for a while, right? And this wasn't like a switch that just flipped. Now, some of the things are newer with um with the Linux terminal and some of that stuff built right into Windows. That stuff's new. But you look at their purchase of GitHub and some of these other like you don't even know that they own GitHub because it's not even relevant or connected. So they've made some really smart decisions over the
Yeah,
last couple of years.
that's true until they don't.
Which is always the
Well,
risk, but
Yeah.
until it happens, it's hard to it's hard to, cast stones at them and say, "You guys are
Oh, no,
gonna ruin
you can't
this."
predict it, but if you look at the history of large companies
Yeah.
over the years, they peak and then they have what was what was that whole thing? It was a big deal back in the 80s, Tom Peters and excellence and all that stuff. It's the success curve, they call it, where they show innovation, adaptability, acceptance of something arises, it gets to where it peaks, and then it starts to stagnate. And if you don't keep redoing that curve, you will suffer or disappear. And
Yeah.
IBM was supposed to at one time, these numbers are not a big deal now, but they predicted back in the 70s, we will be the first $75 billion company.
Yeah.
And they fell way short because they made bad decisions. And then they came back and then they reinvented themselves and they spun people off and they bought companies. And it's such a, hopefully Microsoft will be able to continue doing, they do some weird stuff. I mean, let's face it, with the whole ecosystem for people. But sometimes it is in our best interest, sometimes it's not.
Well, and I think if you look at, their closest competitor in terms of size, Google, on the other hand, they're not they don't necessarily operate that same way. They'll acquire a company, try and fold it into Google, miserably fail with it, and shut it down. Now,
Yeah.
Google is a lot more, I will say Google's a lot more risky than Microsoft is. Google will throw a couple $100 million behind some crazy ass idea to see if it's got any legitimacy. So with that, you have inherent risk. Um, but I don't see any of these I don't see any of this stuff working long term for any. Again, you're right, absolutely right, Spence, and that's what Sony's the primary one that's arguing against the merger of Activision Blizzard. And even though Microsoft has come out and said, "Hey, our big title, our big IP, which is Call of Duty, which is the one that everybody cares about, we'll make sure that it is available on your platform for 10 years, no questions asked. We'll give you just right off the bat a decade, and then we'll come back to the drawing table." Sony won't even return their phone call on, according to court documents. So
You-
they're attempting, and Sony's stonewalling it, and Sony's kind of screwed themselves with this new Last of Us television show that's out, and it's the like hottest show on television. And now Microsoft is arguing in court. Well, look at Sony Entertainment, and Sony the game console. They've got the number one television show anywhere in the world, and it's only available through their platform. So it's just very interesting to see the tit for tat back and forth. Who's a bigger monopoly? Who's more of a closed ecosystem? When, if you actually look at it, Sony has a far more closed off ecosystem than Microsoft does. Their
Right.
exclusive titles are only
Zero
available on the PlayStation. At least the
zero
Microsoft ones are available on
interoperability.
Windows. Yeah, and
Didn't
Linux.
Sony didn't Sony sue Epic Games when they
Uh,
tried allowing multi right? It wasn't
uh,
available
yeah, they
on
were
the
going.
PlayStation for a while.
Yes, there was a act. Well, I don't know that it was a lawsuit. It was that crossplay wasn't allowed because it was against Sony's terms of service. Because again, they're a
Exactly.
closed platform. Yet now they're arguing that it is in
Point proven,
fact
right? Yeah.
it is. They are arguing that it is in fact the others that are the closed platform. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Who knows where it's going to go?
They
But
are screaming at the top of their lungs that the earth is flat and everybody else is wrong.
yes, and they're quickly running out the clock on this because the clock is ticking for this to all be done. I mean, the merger has to go through or has to fail at some point. It can't in perpetuity just go on forever.
It's interesting because I think we see just the tip of the iceberg as far as what's really going on in the background, that there's so much more going on that we don't understand between different companies and mergers and licensing. Like what happened with that Spider-Man movie where they brought in the actors from the prior versions. Remember that? Did you see that? Guys, see that movie?
Oh yeah.
I did not.
It's excellent. Well, it was
Homecoming. Yes. Yeah.
one of the better movies. I mean, they brought back had Tom Holland. They had all the other actors who did Spider-Man, all kind of converge in this common timeline. But they had to go to Sony to get the permission for the first movie to integrate it into this movie because they own the rights to the first movie.
Well, not just the first movie. All of the other series were Sony owned.
Yeah, and then it became
and
Marvel
this one
for
is
Tom
done
Holland.
by
Yeah,
Marvel. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So it
Yeah.
was very interesting to see what happened. But I remember the quote. We're talking about big companies. I remember the quote from Jeff Bezos about Amazon when he talked to the corporate world in Amazon. He said, "Our job is to hold off bankruptcy as long as possible." And he understands that eventually it's going to go stale and something will happen because things. Look at what companies have been around over 100 years. And I just look to see what
That's a
you would.
Years?
phenomenal point. I saw there was a stat the other day that it's either the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq. What one of these major stock uh, aggregates that like Spence. It was something ridiculous. Like 8 companies on there have 8 of the like original companies that the index was founded with are still on there, and it was like Ford and GM and a couple of others.
Yeah,
Everything else was brand new because, well, yeah,
yeah.
companies don't last forever. I mean, there's this idea that you know it's just in forever they exist, and the reality is they don't. You don't have to go back that far to see.
Yeah, sometimes it's just in some form or
Yeah.
a trademark or a license or something that goes forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's inevitable.
Nick, I
Right.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
It ties into this gaming stuff. Uh, is there a antitrust lawsuit against Steam going on?
Not
I don't
that
think it's anything new, but
oh,
like something from May.
um, I don't remember that coming forward. It may have, but it may have been kind of, it may have kind of skirted under the radar if it wasn't like super legitimate. Who was it? But well, it wasn't Epic that brought it
So
forward.
here's what happened. I was scrolling on some social media, got an ad, right? And the ad was targeting people who play on Steam,
Mhm.
and like sign up to our something 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 to join the antitrust lawsuit that will
Oh,
refund all of your games between, I don't know, 2018 and 2022 or something.
hmm.
Yeah, and I was looking, and the only thing I could find was some antitrust in the EU that was filed in May, and apparently was a continuation of something that of a lawsuit that failed, but now it was accepted to the court. So I'm guessing litigation hasn't started. So anyway, you being
Huh.
our gaming correspondent, uh, I am assigning you a news task. You
That's
can
fine.
figure this one out because I couldn't.
That'll be good for infection.
Yeah.
I
It
will.
was really strange seeing that ad, right? Because it for me it came out of the blue, and I think I have my finger on the pulse,
Oh,
especially
this
since I joined
website.
this show.
Have you
I
did you go to the website?
I I, I watched that frame. I didn't
Look at
engage with it too
how
much.
look at how
Oh no, it's junky as
look at
hell.
how weird this website is. This is the Steam Claims website. It's got some girl in a coffee shop who is this is not a
Yeah,
gaming laptop, but she's most definitely not gaming.
yeah, that's
Steam
some
users could
stock
be entitled to
photo.
hundreds or even thousands of dollars as a result of overpaying due to Valve's anti-competitive practices. This is a weird contact form with a double scroll bar. Um, this federal judge did something or other. This is a law firm. This might just be a law firm trying to this might be a
I
law
don't
firm
even
just
think
trying
it's a law
to
firm.
I mean, I can find out. But this is an attorney advertisement. Yeah, and it's probably legitimate. This is probably just a fishing expedition. Not
Yeah,
not in a
maybe.
bad way, but trying to see if there's any sort of get these people to preemptively sign up to see if there's any interest so that you can go ahead and file a suit. Um, this seems like total. This seems like nonsense. Oh, there's another one too. Look at this one. This is the Steam refund lawsuit.
I
Another law.
So I did find these sites, but I wasn't focusing on them. I was trying to find the data,
The news articles. Yeah, there isn't
the
any,
news
which means
articles,
it's
and I
not.
found
Yeah.
something from May, but that's it. And I was wondering if you knew a bit more about it, but it seems that no.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's a Reddit post about it. Some guy who also received an ad on Facebook about it, which is good. I will know good targeting. I mean, the fact that it's showing up to people means it's working. But it doesn't appear that there's any there's there's anything really legitimate here. These are the companies that are running these are the individuals that run it that are running the Camp Lejeune water ads right now that you see all over television. These are
Yeah.
the same groups, and the asbestos and the talcum powder. I mean, there's a lot of companies that's all that they do, and they're very successful at it because they just blanket the market. But it's these same kind of groups that run those kind of television commercials and everything else.
Hey, I
Yeah, it's
just
the
did a
Better Call
search.
Saul's one, right?
Yes.
No, somebody ought to buy that name and just use it if they
I'm
could.
sure A&E's already got it trademarked.
Oh
or
yeah, I'm
something.
sure, but to pay them big bucks and they could use it, right? It would just make the show popular. Hey, I just wanted to say that I stand wildly corrected here when I look for older companies. There are a lot of them, and I'm amazed at what they've, in some form or another, they still exist. The oldest one, believe it or not, is is British Telecom, BT,
Yeah,
started in 1846
yeah.
as the electric company, and are still. They switched to British Telecom in the 1970s. But Siemens, Corning, Nokia, Cable and Wireless, Toshiba, GE, Ericsson, AT&T, as it still exists today, but started in 1885.
Right, Bell, right?
Yeah, it was the Bell system, or the parent, or the engineering arm of the Bell system. Yeah, Kodak. I don't know that. Well,
Many of these though are not listed anymore as
no,
like Ericsson is not. I don't believe Ericsson even makes anything anymore. I don't know that they'd even be a listed
yeah,
company.
this,
A
Yeah, I
lot of
think
these have been
list.
delisted.
I think I was reading a story that said that all they do is they're holding some patent
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
and
which
Yeah,
people
they
are
can still
buying.
make.
and that's
You're
it.
Yeah,
still getting royalties that
yeah,
roll in,
yeah.
but
That's the
you're
thing.
no longer doing business.
But the world's oldest company is a Japanese construction company that started in the year 545.
Yeah, I don't know how they trace that back, but all right. Well,
Look, they are one of the cultures that had paper, right? They've used paper. I think the only culture using paper longer than them is Egyptian papyrus, right? So
And then there were other civilizations that used clay tablets for cuneiform that they found, back the Sumerians, and that had writing.
right, but those
Yeah.
didn't. Not all of them. Most of them didn't survive.
No, but
That's the problem,
what they
right? The problem is
found,
the upkeep, right?
what they found is amazing. I mean, they found a baker's
That,
checklist thing, kind of weird stuff like that.
I think that we need to find out really what companies are still there that started BC, and if they're still.
Yeah, those don't exist.
What do you mean they don't
They're called
exist?
countries. They're called countries. Uh,
They
But
do. They do exist. That means only like a couple of years. Oh, you talking about before Christ? No, I'm talking about before COVID.
wow, the crowd goes wild, ladies and gentlemen. Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, hit the sound effect.
anyway, listen to this now. Web hosting GoDaddy says it
oh
suffered,
yes,
huh?
I read about it yesterday.
Suffered a breach where unknown attackers have stolen source code and installed malware on its servers after breaching its cPanel shared hosting environment in a multi-year attack.
Oh
3 years, right?
Huh?
3 years
Yeah, it
that it's been
started in
going on.
2020. While GoDaddy discovered the security breach in early December 2022, following customer reports that their sites were being used to redirect to random domains, the attackers had access to the company's network for multiple years. Based on our investigation, we believe these incidents are part of a multi-year campaign by a sophisticated threat actor group that, among other things, installed malware on our systems and obtained pieces of code related to some services within GoDaddy. That's what they say in an SEC filing. The company says that previous breaches disclosed in November 2021 and March 2020 are also linked to this multi-year campaign. The November 2021 incident led to a data breach affecting 1.2 million managed WordPress customers after attackers breached GoDaddy WordPress hosting environment using a compromised password singular. They gained access to the email addresses and all impacted customers, their WordPress admin passwords, secure FTP and database credentials, and SSL private key of a subset of active clients. I mean, this is big.
This is
I
ridiculous.
I am
Like
absolutely
it's
ridiculous.
and to top all of that, I'm reading that, right? And I'll explain why I was reading that in a moment. But I'm reading that, and I remember like specifically helping out a buddy who had a website running WordPress on through GoDaddy, right? Experienced these things probably 5 to 7 to 8 years ago,
Mm,
like hacks into the system. So this is they were negligent the entire time, not just,
right.
oh, we suddenly the only reason we are hearing about this, by the way, is regulation that enforces, right, that if you had a breach, if you do
You have
not notify the moment you identify it, right, you have a 2 weeks window. If you do not notify within that 2 weeks, you are going to be fined. So I am guessing, this is my guess here, that this is just a situation where they couldn't hush this one, right? And they got caught with their pants down. But they know internally about this since forever, that they do not know how to deal
yeah,
with
but
these
that
breaches.
law, in all fairness, that law is not an old law that you
It's
have to.
4 years old,
Yeah.
right?
It is?
Yeah. Yeah. GDPR. Yeah. Maybe five,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's when this started. So, you know, until the breach won't happen to an EU customer that decides to sue,
Mhm.
right? Then they're good. But they've been abusing their customers since forever. They've never provide. They are. Let's put it this way: when you think about good service, you are definitely not thinking of GoDaddy, right?
Right. I mean, but it's
So
affordable, cheap.
yeah, they're the affordable group, that company that will abuse you if you sneeze the wrong way as a customer, and it won't protect you if
Mhm.
you get hurt,
Yeah.
right? So yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, I'm saddened to hear that the state is that bad. I'm happy to hear that they are now out in the open and they finally need to deal with their shit. But yeah. So and by the way, the reason I was reading about it is because I was trying to help another friend of ours, Sarid, to solve an issue where they suddenly, out of the blue, at least according to customers of there, right? Uh, they switched off a complete service that they were using, email aliasing routing, right? It's like out of the blue,
hmm.
stopped working. A company receiving emails routed to them through GoDaddy suddenly stops receiving emails. Why? Because they changed systems and they literally blew off, turned off the switch, completely deleted the other system. and I was trying to find details about it, and I couldn't find it because of the noise of this breach, right? Because anything GoDaddy in recent post is just about that. Um, yeah. So strange
Very
stuff.
Can I make a
sad.
kinda I don't know if
Go
I don't know if there's any legitimacy in this, or not. The obviously, you mentioned that this thing went on for,
a few
the better
years.
part of 3 years, or the better part of 2 years. Um, I bet you the reason it went so long undetected is because so many of these websites were WordPress. WordPress is so easily hacked and compromised that when these situations popped up and these websites were, quote, hacked or compromised, there wasn't even a thought of, oh, this is just another WordPress install getting hacked. Let's roll it back, update your passwords, and so on and so forth. Um,
Possibly, you're right.
I assume I bet guarantee you that's a big part of it, because if your website got hacked and you're running WordPress on GoDaddy, the first assumption is you have installed a bad plugin or a bad theme that had a
Anywhere,
backdoor
not
in it.
just on
Yeah,
GoDaddy.
correct. But
Anywhere.
in GoDaddy's case, because I mean, a majority of what they're doing is cheap shared hosting accounts for people running their WordPress
Yeah.
sites. So I bet you I think that might be a reason it went so detect. You don't even, I mean, Amnon, if a WordPress site and your thing gets hacked, you don't assume it's anything on the server side. You assume it's something on WordPress because it's so
Uh,
full of holes.
yeah, you assume, but we go and we check the the site itself really close to make sure. And in most cases, it was a bad plugin
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
not updated. A lot of that's the problem with WordPress. WordPress is not, and you know it. It's not install and forget.
correct.
You can't. You have to keep at it and update the software. And if you don't, they have bots out there that say, "Oh, hey, we have a site there that is not updated. Let's attack it. Let's
Yeah.
break into
Well,
it." Yeah.
it's the same thing dealing with um, Windows. Why is
Yeah.
Windows always more
Yeah.
prone to viruses? Because it's got
Now,
70+% of the market share. Same thing with
yeah.
WordPress. Everybody's running WordPress. It makes perfect sense.
Here's another one. Researchers have discovered a clever piece of malware that stealthily exfiltrates data and executes malicious code from Windows systems by abusing a feature in Microsoft Internet Information Service, IIS. That's the Windows uh,
Web
web
server.
server. IIS is the general purpose web server that runs on Windows devices. As a web server, it accepts requests from remote clients and returns the appropriate response. In July 2021, network intelligence company Netcraft said there were 51.6 million instances of IIS spread across 13.5 million unique domains. IIS offers a feature called failed request event buffering that collects metrics and other data about web requests received from remote clients. Client IP addresses and port and HTTP headers with cookies are two examples of the data that can be collected. Helps administrators troubleshoot failed web requests by retrieving one meeting certain criteria from a buffer and writing them to disk. The mechanism can help determine the cause of 401 or 404s, the errors, or isolate the cause of stalled or aborted requests. So this is since 2021. No, in 2021 there were so many, but they don't say how long this has been going on. But they said that it's sitting there and it's stealthy. That's
Well, what's the best way to the best way to get away with something is to do it. I mean, when somebody gets arrested for extorting a business or committing, check frauds, it's not that they wrote themselves a $250,000 check. It's that they skimmed
Right.
hundreds of dollars, small amounts at a
Small
time
amount.
over a
Yeah.
5-year period. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with this. Same thing with the GoDaddy hack. You don't make yourself, you don't make your presence immediately available so you can run the scam for as long as possible.
Right.
So it's the best. It's the best way to do it.
Nick, you're not, there is somebody there who's going to nudge you when you need to leave, right?
I'm gonna leave right now. It's just hitting 10 o'clock. So
Okay.
now that we're done with that story, I sorry to all of our listeners. I did not do specials this week, but we'll be back. We'll be back next week with it. So,
All right, Nick. Have
alrighty, gents, enjoy the rest of the show. Talk to y'all
Be
soon.
safe.
See ya.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Did did anybody notice there was a story about how CPU sales were way down?
Yeah. All
I mean,
over.
I cratered
It's not just
from a
CPU,
growth
it's
perspective.
computers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the I'm looking at statistics for CPUs
Yeah,
and how
for
it
x86.
year over year it was down 28%.
Yep.
And then just in the they thought it would end in fourth quarter
It
last year, but it
kinda
didn't.
did, but then it had like a second
Yeah.
wind for a short time, and then boom, again. Yeah, yeah,
It's and then it went as high as 34% depending on what you're looking at it.
yeah,
And it's incredible. And if
yep,
the factors involved, of course, the pandemic was involved, but it was involved in them having higher expectations for people who delayed purchases. And they said that the delayed purchases just didn't happen. On amazing.
yeah.
And it looks like year over year, market share. They look at 3 years, uh, fourth 2021 or three quarters. Let's say Q4 2021, Q3 2022, Q4 2022, where Intel went from 74 to 60%, 68% of the market, and AMD went from 25 to 31% of the market. So that's a big
That's
gain.
big because you're talking here about billions and billions of
Yeah. I mean, just that,
in
it's a
numbers.
lot of stuff moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Alright,
interesting this has been. AMD almost fell off the face of the planet several times.
we were
They're
talking about
coming back.
GoDaddy, so here's another one. Domain registrar Namecheap had their email account, not email accounts, theirs, breached last Sunday, causing a flood of MetaMask and DHL phishing emails that attempted to steal a recipient's personal information and cryptocurrency wallet. The phishing campaign started around 4:30 p.m. Eastern and originated from SendGrid, an email platform used historically by Namecheap to send renewal notices and marketing emails. SendGrid is a big email provider. After recipients began complaining on Twitter, Namecheap CEO confirmed that the account was compromised and that they disabled email through SendGrid while they investigate the issue. So it was their own email account that was, and the emails came out as though they were sent by Namecheap.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you're getting email from. You should always check and see, it's relevant to me. Why am I getting this? I mean, we really need to be vigilant. I mean, I know it's probably too much to do and too much of an effort to put on it. But when you're driving a car, you're supposed to watch the road. You're supposed to know what you're doing, and you recognize things. You see a rock, a big rock in the middle of the road. You don't drive over it. You move aside. You do something. I mean, you see somebody coming into the too fast. You do. I mean, you constantly thinking about what should I do in order to protect myself. You're supposed to do the same thing here. As rough as it sounds, it's the only way to protect yourself from these kind of trouble. And believe me, there are a lot more of these troubles than there are big rocks in the middle of the road.
Yep.
I
So,
think it's
Vince, I think we know why there's a I mean, there's a dip in CPU sales because people don't I mean, they got fired. They don't have even money to buy those CPUs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, a lot
But
of
we do know who's keeping on buying them is those hackers.
yeah, oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
They are thriving.
yeah.
I actually considered building a new machine when the tower I had failed, and I said no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with the laptop I've got. It does everything I needed to do. I have my 8 core that I'm on now that I can experiment with and do stuff with. But it's just I used to love to do this stuff. I mean, I would constantly be building something new, and it's sometimes I'll look at it, I get Pam will say, "You spend so much time up there at night doing this stuff. Why?" It's like, well, I enjoyed it, but now I get like, I go past, go past dinner time, and I'm a little late coming down to eat. And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore tonight. I'm done. Try to
Yeah.
make things as simple as possible.
So before the show, we were talking about internet service, speeds, and all that. And here's another one. Amazon, I guess it's pronounced Kuiper, Kuiper division, can start launching satellites to offer broadband service in the U.S., the Federal Communication Commission said last week. The FCC International Bureau approved their orbital debris mitigation plan. This
They're
approval
getting ahead of the curve.
This approval was needed to satisfy a condition imposed in 2020 when the Amazon subsidiary received tentative approval for a network of 3,236 satellites in low Earth orbit. Our action will allow Kuiper to begin deployment of its constellation in order to bring high speed broadband connectivity to customers around the world. Yesterday, FCC order said. Now, around the world, yet they are only, from what I understood from the article, they were approved for the US. So, but they're thinking about the rest of the world. Now,
Well,
mix
obviously,
that
yeah.
with Starlink, with all those little uh, satellites that are out there. Boy, oh boy.
It's like cell towers, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
the,
yeah.
in Israel, back in probably 15 years ago, there was a government decision. And I don't know if something like this came up here, but there was a government decision forcing all of these cell companies to work together
Yeah,
and
it is
you
here
put their equipment on the same
on the same
towers.
tower. It's the same here.
It's the same here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And this is exactly it. And this will only happen with somebody forcing companies to work together.
Mhm.
Because otherwise they don't want to. Everyone wants to do their own thing, right?
Yeah. And then you have a jungle of I remember when I was growing up is looking at the skyline in Jerusalem and all you see is TV antennas. And these were
Yes.
big antennas. You know, everybody, every apartment in that building had their own antenna. Nobody thought about having a central antenna, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, that can really pollute
It's funny how
our
the
eyes.
the name they chose for the satellite system, Kuiper, which is the Kuiper Belt, which
Oh,
is the leftover debris from the creation of the solar system
okay.
that's out
So
past
that's
the orbit of
debris.
Pluto.
Okay.
Well, when you look at imagery of it, it looks like a sphere of dots. So it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. Why they used it.
So that's where the debris is coming from.
That's a well, they want it. They figure, well, we'll just name it for what it is going to become anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Sooner or later.
eventually,
Yeah,
oh well.
yeah. I
And
would
they don't have a launch platform themselves that can send this up. They have to launch it from another company.
well,
I mean, that's fine, but they may not have it the heavy lift or the
SpaceX,
other companies ready to
SpaceX.
go. And yeah, but that's what's so fascinating about Musk and having having his own platform to launch his own products on that works very successfully. It's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah. And there was something here about Musk. Oh, here, talking about him. Chat Chat GPT related. Chat GPT shows that artificial intelligence has gotten incredibly advanced, and that is something we should all be worried about, according to Elon Musk. One of the biggest risks to the future of civilization is AI, he told attendees at the World Government Summit in Dubai. Shortly after mentioning the development of ChatGPT, it's both positive or negative and has great promise, great capability, he added. But he stressed that with that comes great danger. ChatGPT has illustrated to people just how advanced AI has become, according to Musk. The AI has been advanced for a while. It just didn't have a user interface that was accessible to most people. I think we need to regulate AI safety, and frankly, it is, I think, actually a bigger risk to society than cars or planes or medicine. Regulation may slow down AI a little bit, but I think that might also be a good thing. Now,
He's
he's not stupid,
completely,
so I don't understand.
absolutely, no, he's completely and absolutely correct.
Yeah,
Like, there is no double talk there. It is, but I also know that it probably falls on deaf ears. Uh, Now, to be fair, I'm not pointing the finger at OpenAI and their ChatGPT
right.
because that's just a demonstration of what's possible. And for now, they specifically, I think they're doing it responsibly at this point. But, right, what will happen when this tool, uh, which starts working in the hand of the less responsible? Um,
And then
it,
not only that, it's
even with a responsible company behind it, right? So, what will happen when this starts replacing people in mass? Now, look, I am no, the technology is amazing. It is not going to replace people completely,
no.
but it definitely can create a situation, right, where using something like that will be more beneficial for the customers of a company, for a company running it, and it will allow the company to hire more experienced people, right? And reduce the less technical staff, for example, less knowledgeable staff, and reduce the man count, basically, right?
Give
And
better
focus on quality.
service
So
for less money.
everything sounds great, but
Yeah.
then again, as a society, how do we deal? How do we make sure that more people can climb that ladder faster, right? And not get stagnated in the what we today call the minimum wages job, right? That will be replaced by something like AI. So it's that, yes, the technology is here, it is advancing fast, but nobody is planning on it to arrive, and it has arrived. So how do you deal with it, right? And in our policymakers, it's not even in their agenda. Even the
or in
weird
their
ones are not talking about it, right?
Yeah.
It's
or
not
in
even.
their understanding, because you see a Senate or a congressional committee, they'll interview a high tech person, and the questions that they ask, you can tell they don't know what they're asking. It's assistants that wrote the question for them, because they asked a question and the person
Ah,
responds to the question, and they don't even know what they just heard. So
but you know
it's
what's going to happen now? That senator is going to go and ask an AI what to
Right.
ask.
Yep. Yep.
And that's when it's going to come into policymaking,
yep.
right?
What's the yeah?
And
And it all depends on AI is great, but if its learning comes from a specific silo that
right,
doesn't include broad learning, it's going to learn to react to the way you train it to react.
Mhm.
So it's
I,
yeah, it's and who's to say what other clandestine uh, entities out there are and aren't already using it?
Nobody
Whatever.
yeah,
could
no,
say. Yeah.
we're not
Yeah,
exposed. We do
yeah.
not know. I mean, even AI, Open AI, and ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT, everybody's talking about ChatGPT. They're talking about ChatGPT version 3 that came out in January of 2023, right? So, ChatGPT has been public, has been updated. It has impressed people before, but never in this way. This is the first time where once the hammer
Everybody. Yeah.
hit, right, it just blew out. This is a big bang sort of event, right? The exposure of ChatGPT
Mhm.
3, and it's gonna get more advanced and more advanced. And OpenAI is a company that it exists less than 10 years, right? Small company that started up with the thought that they might do something cool with AI. They got the funding, uh, and I doubt they're in profitability mode, right? They are all about, okay, what do we do with this, right? It's they still don't know what to do with it themselves, and they're trying their best. Naivety is going to be replaced very very soon, right? So how is this going to advance? I'm not saying it's the downfall, right? Where I'm definitely I don't see myself as a pessimist, but I am worried that this will not be addressed fast enough, because history has showed us we do not know as a society how to address this fast enough.
I have a suggestion for a first project that they should use this on and see what happens is designing roads and parking lots. Because the way the way civil engineering is right now, you drive down a certain road. What is this jug handle thing? What are these crazy lanes and all that stuff? Somebody's devising these ideas and getting people's attention. It's like, have you really thought about this?
Yeah.
Now
There are
Oh,
some technologies they need to be boring, right? And
yeah.
here
Nobody says that parking lot design has to be exciting.
yeah, exactly.
and this next article is right what you were talking about, Gal. Talking about the new Bing. After
Oh
this
yeah,
after the search engine has been insulting users,
yeah.
lying to them, and emotionally manipulating people, Microsoft says it's now acting on feedback to improve the tone and precision of responses, and warns that long chat sessions could cause issues. Reflecting on the first 7 days of public testing, Microsoft Bing team says it didn't fully envision people using its chat interface for social entertainment or as a tool for more general discovery of the world. It found that
AKA, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like I mean, that was like the first thing I would think of is how is this going
There
to
is one
influence
thing
people?
they didn't do.
uh,
They didn't ask their own AI, right?
was
How this is going to go.
so it goes, it found that long or extended chat sessions with 15 or more questions can confuse the Bing model. These longer chat sessions can also make Bing become repetitive or be prompted slash provoked to give responses that are not necessarily helpful or in line with our designed tone. I mean, there it is. What do we do with this? Let's just put it out there and see what people do with that. It's like,
Yeah, they marketing and management, right? Pressured engineering to take it
to take
out
it.
when it
Yeah,
wasn't ready,
yeah,
right? This has happened tons of time. This is the first time that this is actually insulting people
yeah.
literally. And there's a lot to learn from this, right? Like seriously now, there's a lot to learn from this. But that's the thing. This is a very irresponsible way of dealing with it, right?
Correct.
And uh, and we're gonna see more of that, not more of the hype around Chat GPT, right? Because now that this has been pushed to market by one successful party, it is going to be pushed to market without proper testing and without proper evaluating. And we're going to see more of the Bing fiasco. Then we're going to see more of Samsung's folding screen fiasco, right? Then we are going to see the third and fourth generations, which is great, but nobody talks about it, right? Because everybody remembers the fiasco. This is Google Glass
Sure.
all again, right? This is like uh, the friction with society, and I don't know if it's going to. I hope regulations will come, but I do know that if we are
It will
pushing for
come.
regulations now, we're only going to get don't use it, right? And that's not good enough.
No.
Well, it'll affect the attitude of acceptance. And if people see it's crazy all over the place, they're going to back away from it. I think what they
Right.
should another. I mean, some of it could be really funny too.
Yeah.
I mean, we should install AI color selection machines at all Lowe's stores for the paint department. So where here's my room and the AI selects the colors for them. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Anyway.
And then you'll have one AI saying, no, he's not really an AI. Or
each
he's an inferior AI.
each paint
Yeah.
company, each paint company has their own little kiosk. They're arguing with each other. Oh,
Yeah.
this could be great. I want to see the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide. That's who
Doing
should
that.
be AI. That's the voice we
Oh,
want to have for AI.
is this? Yeah, we talked about this here, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, maybe Katie mentioned it about the AI ChatGPT, how it was bypassing. People found out how to
Yeah.
bypass
We were
its limitation, its constraints,
Yeah.
asking it to pretend it's something else without
Hmm.
constraints, right? So yeah, and it worked. Like it was really effective. So I wonder. That's the thing. If something like that comes out, right, from the successful solution, is how come a company like Microsoft dares take out something they haven't tried in public yet, right? And opened it to the public. Even chat, even OpenAI, when they did their test, their initial outing of the technology, they did it invitation based, right? Because that controls the flow. That control it can own it will grow exponentially, but it'll still have some sort of growth graph, right? Not just
Controlled
boom
growth. Yeah.
everybody. Yeah, let's open it.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It feels like it
Irresponsible.
was a very irresponsible
Yeah.
step. Uh,
Absolutely. All right. Here is something that happened this week. A friend of mine asked me if I work on laptop. Yeah, bring it. Let's see. What's wrong with it? Said, it needs to be reset, Windows completely reinstalled. And I said, okay, bring it. So I'm starting the computer and it goes right like Windows was just like you just got it from the store when it asks you all the questions to okay this
Yeah.
and
Oh, open box experience.
I learned about OOBE local. But it was going very, very slow.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about waiting 30 seconds to a minute for certain keys to be recognized. It got to a point and it just wasn't when it started doing the updates, it was, I mean, it was unusable. I said, "Okay, let's really do somebody tried to do a restore here and maybe turned it off in the middle or something. Let's restore." So I went ahead and I unplugged and plugged, unplugged and plugged, stopped and started to get it into safe mode or into repair mode and told it to go ahead and restore it to factory. So it took its time and it started doing it and it was pretty fast. Started answering the questions and going and bypassing. This is Windows 10,
Yeah.
bypassing the internet and all that. And the longer I went, the slower it became,
Okay.
to the point that when I got to the updates, it was really, I mean, that thing really running. And it's a Dell that had no lights on it, no lights whatsoever for a hard drive. So I couldn't tell, is it really doing something or is it just hung? So decided to do it again. And I unplugged the internet right off the bat and told it to go ahead and do it. It went and it went and it went, and then it flashed and something has gone wrong, and it was OOBE local. Said, okay, let's find what that means. So I went and looked, and it says that it's a problem with the out of box experience in Windows, and you need to try it once more. And if not, you need to do a restore. I mean, a reset. Where did a reset? Come on.
Like install from USB.
Huh?
You need to install from USB.
Well, it had a CD. There was no problem. I did not.
That's
d-
your problem. You were using the CD.
Yeah.
You were using a very old image.
It's not. I mean, I did this image like a couple of days earlier, and it only needed one update to go to
I'm not
22.
saying that it won't work, but I'm saying that's your problem.
Okay, but
If you
that's
would have gone and created a USB, right?
yeah,
You would create, then you're using the latest image with the least amount of
least amount of
updates
updates.
afterwards.
But as it turned out, that wasn't the problem. After I said, "Okay, great, you're gonna have to leave it here. I'll work," and I said, "Well, it may be that the hard drive is too slow." So I opened the laptop, and it's a 1 terabyte 5400. Well, I had the drive out. I said, "Let me try another drive." I had another drive laying on the bench. I put it in there. Perfect.
Okay. And the
Eh,
drive is mechanical?
yeah, the drive was yeah, it's an older machine.
Okay.
I put the other drive back in. I thought, but I also reseated the memory and stuff. I said, well, maybe that did it. So I put the older drive back in and reinstalled Windows from the same CD. The same problem. So I put the new drive in there, did the update, installed everything, and so far everything is okay. Nick was here Friday for a couple of minutes, and I brought it up. And when I was telling him what it was doing, he said right away, he said, "That failing hard drive." I said, I never ran across this. How did you know?"
I
Yeah,
mean, it does feel, I get what you're saying. The moment it hits some bad sectors, right? Then it's getting into retry loops. Uh, And but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's that.
yeah,
Can you
you're
hear?
on.
What?
Yeah, yeah, you're on. We hear you.
Oh, you do? I don't hear myself. Interesting. All right. I was because there's no light. I put my ear, as bad as it is, on the laptop, and I heard it going zigum, zigum, zigum,
Oh, come.
zigum,
Yeah,
zigum,
yeah.
and that's where I said, okay, yeah, that's the drive for sure.
That sounds like the record at the when you have a phonograph and you don't have an automatic reject arm. It just gets to the end of the record. It just that's that sound. It's not the hard drive.
Well,
You forgot to change. You forgot to change the record.
that was it. I mean, and I've never come across something like that. It, and like I say, you
I'll
learn.
give you more. This can happen on SSDs. I've seen this on SSDs that are
Yeah.
failing as well. You get a very similar experience, but it's an SSD. You
Oh,
won't get the noise, but you'll get the slowdown. And the machines are designed to not fail. So if there is a failure point, a sector or whatever, right, then it goes into a retry loop. When it doesn't, it marks the sector as bad and just moves on. But yes, everything will be slower. And the more you need to write, right, the more you need to write, specifically write, that is when things start failing more and more and more.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was a good lesson. Um, look, let's talk a little bit more about breaches. Community Health System (CHS), one of the largest healthcare providers in the United States, with close to 80 hospitals in 16 states, confirmed last week that criminal hackers accessed.
You're on. You're on.
I know, but I'm seeing a thing here about it going off here on Twitch. They're starting that thing again. Um, Access it's the personal and protected health information of up to 1 million patients. The Tennessee based healthcare giant said in a filing with government regulators that the data breach stems from its use of popular file transfer software called Go Anywhere MFT, developed by Forta, previously known as Help System, which is deployed by large businesses to share and send large sets of data securely. Community Health System said that Fortra recently notified it of a security incident that resulted in an unauthorized disclosure of patient data. As a result of the security breach experienced by Fortra, protected health information and personal information of certain patients of the company's affiliates were exposed by the attack, which was first spotted by databreaches.net. The healthcare giant added that it would offer identity theft protection services and notify all affected individuals whose information was exposed, but said that there had been no material interruptions to its delivery of patient care. That's bad stuff when they get it into the health system. You're talking about
This
millions of
is
patients. What?
yeah. This apparently this CVE on Forta is some really, really, really bad news.
Yep.
This is like a OneDrive or a Google Drive. being, I mean, in scope, right? I'm not
Yeah.
saying technology wise. I do not
Oh,
really
that's
know
what.
technology.
Okay.
Yeah, like think of, okay, OneDrive is, well. This is, we've actually seen something like this very very public, right? With the iCloud hack. Remember that,
Yeah.
where celebrities had their photos
Right.
saffron, something like that. It's like, wow,
Yep.
yeah, British
That-
government healthcare, yeah,
Yep.
The good thing
bad
about
news.
being a person that's not in the public eye is that you don't necessarily get targeted for stuff like that.
I know.
Who cares about seeing pictures of me on my vacation?
Well, and another one. Oakland has declared a local state of emergency because of the impact of a ransomware attack that forced the city to take all its IT systems offline
Oh,
on February 8th. Interim City Administrator G. Harold Duffy declared a state of emergency to allow the city of Oakland to expedite orders, materials, and equipment procurement and activate emergency workers when needed. At least they sort of like were ready. That's kind of nice.
that's, yeah, that's what it sounds like. I hope that's the
Yeah.
case, but yeah.
And he says today, interim city administrator G. Harold Duffy issued a local state of emergency due to the ongoing impacts of the network outages resulting from a ransomware attack that began on Wednesday. A statement issued today read the incident did not affect core services, with the 911 dispatch and fire and emergency resources all working as expected. So they were already buying equipment and stuff to deal with that, which is it's nice, but it's too bad, and we didn't hear yet how that uh breach occurred. But I think we probably can guess.
In a world where they talk about lesser and lesser uh, penalties for certain things, this
Yeah,
should have increased penalties,
yeah,
especially when you're putting the public at such great risk. These people who do this, don't care what their background is. They need to be permanently put somewhere else where they can't get to a computer.
Yeah, but the problem, Spence, would be, uh, you can set up like penalty laws and all that. That's true, but you rarely have jurisdiction from where
Yeah.
they are operating. So, yeah,
Remember how
that's a,
remember the original high profile ones where people were prosecuted and then they were in jail for many years and their restrictions were they couldn't touch a computer and all that. Who was a
yeah,
really famous one? It was years ago.
Mitnick, Mitnick,
Yeah, yeah.
Mitnick.
And how he hit what happened to him. I mean, it was
And what he did was never malicious,
yeah, yeah.
right? He just proved them wrong.
Didn't he turn white hat though eventually and actually start to help and kind of renovate,
Later
rehabilitate
on, I
himself?
mean,
Yeah.
he needed to leave, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, think about it.
yeah.
But that's the whole thing. It's like if somebody hacks the onboard network on an airplane and it crashes. I mean,
yeah,
that was a big deal when they switched to the early flight systems when they went computer controlled were believe it or not, FDDI fiber was what was used on the plane, the network. This is a while ago. I mean, but what happens if somebody can breach that and go in and turn off? I'm going to shut the engines down. Crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah.
And
And it's easy to point at the hacker and say they shouldn't have done it, right?
Yeah, but the fact that it
But
was open.
exactly, it's the
Yeah.
negligence of not protecting, of not thinking of this as important enough to protect,
A
right?
la Boeing and the 900 Max and that whole debacle with the software and what they did. I mean, yeah, it wasn't hacked, but it was extremely vulnerable and they didn't train anybody.
Yep.
Oh,
Now, Vince, this is something that you may be interesting. Security camera company Arlo is reversing course on its controversial decision to apply a retroactive end of life policy to many of its popular home security cameras. Arlo CEO Matthew McRae posted a thread on Twitter announcing that the company will not remove free storage of videos for existing customers and that it is extending the end of life dates for older cameras a further year to 2025. He also committed to sending security updates to these cameras until 2026. The end of life policy was due to go into effect January 1st, 2023, and remove the big selling point 7-day free cloud storage for many Arlo cams. McRae now says all users with the 7-day storage service will continue to receive that service uninterrupted. And I
Well,
know
this
you,
gives you more time to plan for it anyway.
uh, do you have any Arlos?
No, no.
But
I
I
did
know you,
notice. I have Wise and I have Zomoto and I have
but I think you were promoting Arlo
me. No,
some time ago.
no. I never was a fan of
No, I
Arlo.
helped the customer install it.
Huh,
Yeah, Uh,
huh.
I I did see, and I wish I could remember the company, an alarm company, a company that does more alarm things than anything else, is now using the Wise cameras. They rebranded them as this other company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand. They are this company started in 2014 and
Okay.
they already have end of life products that they are shutting down.
Yeah.
Is like, are they expecting people to trust them moving forward?
Uh,
I don't get that. It's like you are telling people my product will never last your lifetime, right? Like as you sell it, we're talking about hardware. We're not talking about software that keeps updating.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
Yeah.
come
think
on,
think
right?
about that boardroom meeting when the guy had to come in and present. Oh, remember we were going to do this?
Yeah,
I bet you that's
that
what
was
I bet you the reality hit them. It's not they didn't do it because they were just being altruistic.
exactly. They didn't foresee it. They
Yeah,
didn't like what were they thinking?
yeah.
It's like come on. This is the number one reason we preach over here, right? To use autonomous system, to use stuff that you host yourself or you have control over the hosting and never use something that runs on another person's
Hmm.
server.
Right.
This is exactly this, right? This is like, and this is a company that seemed like, you know, it was it was one of the good guys, right? It provided security at home.
Actually, I see here that they were a spin-off of Netgear.
Wow,
They
really?
they got spun off from Netgear in 2000, whatever it was. And
14.
before that, the Arlo brand was under Netgear, and they broke away.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So
I
they
thought it
probably
seemed
just
familiar. Yeah.
wanted to. They probably wanted to stop dealing with Netgear owned IP. Still, it's like, come on.
I knew personally the CEO of Netgear from when it was a Bay Networks company back in the day, and they had a small office nearby the campus out in Santa Clara. And Patrick Lowe, his name was, and great guy. And I used to keep in touch with him. I have no idea if he's still there anymore. But back then, I was able to make internal orders and get stuff at cost. So when I taught classes, I'd bring a box of whatever was the hot little item from Netgear. And I said, if you stay for the class and pass the test at the end and get certified, you get a free Netgear networks. It was hubs and whatever it was at the time. It wasn't a big deal. But I used to order that stuff. Remember Amazon? It was
Yeah.
like candy.
Yeah.
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 Interesting. Looking at the Wikipedia page for Netgear, they have, according to 2022 numbers, 691 employees.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I knew the regional sales guy.
because probably manufacturing is happening abroad, right?
Yeah,
And they're mainly an IP and marketing company, probably. Yeah,
back when I knew
interesting that
them,
they're that lean.
they were 30 people because there was the management and then there were the regional. Because I asked about getting a job with them because I would say, I can be a great ambassador for your products. And they said, you don't understand. We're like 30 people. That's it. That's the whole company. Oh,
Oh,
amazing. Oh, that's something.
all right. Gal, do you do anything with Python? Oh,
Not directly. I haven't written any meaningful Python, but yeah, I work with
well,
Python stuff a
more
lot.
than 400 malicious packages
Yeah.
were recently uploaded to
It's
PyPL.
it's
Python?
the library store basically.
Yeah,
You can think
Python
about of
Package
it like
Index,
that. Yeah.
the official code repository for Python programming. In the latest indication that the targeting of software developers using this form of attack isn't a passing fad. All
Yeah.
451 packages found recently by security firm Philum contained almost identical malicious payloads and were uploaded in bursts that came in quick succession. Once installed, the packages create a malicious JavaScript extension that loads each time a browser is opened on the infected device, a trick that gives the malware persistence over reboots. The JavaScript monitors the infected developer's clipboard for any cryptocurrency addresses that may be copied to it. When an address is found, the malware replaces it with an address belonging to the attacker. The objective: intercept payments the developer intended to make to a different party. That's bad.
That's sinister. Yeah, I know about this because yeah, in our companies, the engineers they use Python, and they've been reading about it. And so the way this works, by the way, it's so simple because you can share a library that you've written, and by malicious, what they talk about is they publish. Let's say you use some package called pyamnon, okay?
Right.
And so they will load, and if it's popular enough, they would load a library called pyamnon with another n at the end, so amnon, right? And so if you have a typo in your code and you accidentally load that, ran your application that you're developing,
Mm-hmm.
then that library has infected your machine.
Right.
you you might have fixed it a second later, right? But that's it, you're screwed.
Yep.
So um uh the good news is it's primitive. By primitive, I mean it can be easily intercepted by security software installed, uh, um, even on your Windows. Like I'm sure Defender already blocks that and stuff
Mm.
like that, right? So uh, stopping it from happening once it's known is easy. But the initial infection, the initial threat, right? It probably caught a few hundred victims for sure, if not more. So,
Probably.
yeah,
Yep.
it's primitive, but it was very effective for a bit, for a blip. And yes, that's the main reason you need to be vigilant and right and make sure you're
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Internet Explorer 11 was never Windows 10's primary browser. That would be the old pre Chromium version of Microsoft Edge. But IE did continue to ship with Windows 10 for compatibility reasons, and IE11 remained installed and accessible in most versions of Windows 10. even after security updates for the browser ended in June of 2022. That ended last Tuesday. As Microsoft support documentation says that a Microsoft Edge browser update will fully disable Internet Explorer in most version of Windows 10, redirecting users to Edge.
Okay.
So, huh?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to comment on Edge, but I'll wait till you're done.
I don't understand why IE. What compatibility? Who used IE in the last few
Governments,
years?
banks, small shops, you name it. Mostly large, slow organizations, though, which
Amazing.
still had ActiveX based
Yeah.
development on websites which were running very old versions of IIS that we mentioned earlier. Like, yeah, it's a shit show, but it's a good news. It's good news that it's removed. It's being removed.
Well, I mean, I wanted. I think. Why couldn't they
Thankfully, it
remove
wasn't
it?
really used. What?
Why couldn't
Yeah,
they
they said
remove it?
disable.
Why
I
disable it?
I don't know what that means. I'm worried as well, right? By the term disabled
Yeah.
and not removed. But yeah, um, I don't know. Don't know how to
I don't
react to
remember
it
what
because I
it
don't know the
was.
technical
Was it
stuff.
Windows 10? Was it still
Windows
the
10 was pushing Edge as so it has a, Windows 8 has a built-in um, browser that is no longer called Internet Explorer. Remember it
there
uh,
was one of the new OSs, you had to go into Windows system, whatever, find IE and make a
right.
shortcut out of it to use it. You had to
So
know that it's there. I
that's
don't
Windows 10.
Okay.
That's Windows 10 because Windows 10 had was packed with Edge that was introduced in 8 in tandem with Internet Explorer.
Okay.
And Edge, actually Edge I think was already introduced in Windows 7. And Edge was then replaced by the Chromium Edge,
Mhm.
which you had to download and install on Windows 10. And at one point, I think Windows updates would do the downloading for you.
Yeah.
So, right, it's like they've phased it out. And I think Windows Edge still has like a compatibility layer for running Explorer sites. I wonder if that's going away as well. So sites that are only that will only work in Windows Explorer, it can run it in some sort of compatibility mode. So um, I wonder if that's what they mean by disabling it is like switching off the feature, and maybe there's a way of enabling it if it's really required or something like that. But
Uh,
yeah, sounds bad.
yeah. I mean, I remember the everything was, "Don't dare use it. It is too vulnerable. Don't even bring it up." And thanks for
Right,
you.
but if you're working within an intranet, right, where these apps are
Okay. Yeah.
required,
All
right,
right.
that's you're not that vulnerable unless you have a bad actor working from within. So sometimes that exists.
Oh, I remember you're right. There were banks, and I remember
Yeah.
my bank told me that in order to do stuff online, I have to use
Right.
IE.
For the
But
longest time, it was that way. Yeah.
but
Same with me. Same
yeah,
the
but I
bank. Yeah.
used Firefox and it was working just fine.
Yeah. It's just they've
For
never
most
tested it with anything
things.
else,
Yeah.
right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just didn't want to bother going through a
Yeah.
certification process.
All right.
Well, Firefox is such a unwanted kid in the web development world, but it is the only piece of software out there that, like, the development behind it is not driven by profit, is not driven by it's driven by technology, and and still, and yeah, they have some weird takes, right? Like they're why would they come up with a VPN of their own? Who would want to use it? I have no idea, right? And I don't see any technological advantage there. And some of the things they are doing to, to get funds is weird, but then again, their technology, at least, it is not clean, but it is the cleanest out there, the way I see it. Um, and still they get this complete disregard because they've never been able, since their rise to fame, right? They've never been able to be the big player anymore,
Right.
and it's a shame. It's really a shame.
Well,
I was mentioning before about Edge, and tell you guys about my experience trying to renew my passport online?
yeah, but you couldn't
Well,
do it on one machine.
for me it was okay in the beginning. It took several iterations. I had to keep resetting the cache on Edge. Couldn't get Chrome to work properly. It said Chrome and Edge were the only two supported browsers for Windows. This is from the State Department site, and the only one for Apple would have been Safari on a Mac, not on a phone, not on iOS.
I
But had enormous trouble trying to get Pam's account to work. I created the account successfully, password, all that. Every time I tried to log in, they do a challenge, a one-time password challenge. And you go to the site, I clear the cache in Edge, I go to the site, you log in, it said sending OTP. And it would keep going back and forth between giving you that message and the blank screen, back and forth, back and forth. I'd get the code. It would come to her email and the site would never proceed. Tried it on and off, on and off. Finally, I called their support, and luckily enough, I got somebody. The first person I talked to sent me to a higher level support guy. He was a little on the snarky side, but not bad. But his suggestion was, there's still, of course, it's still all experimental, and they did close it off to new users until March because they're trying to deal with all the people they have already. But the trick to it was to always create a new private, not what do they call it? Not immune. What's the term for it?
Incognito session.
Incognito session, because that clears all of the settings that you need for this to work. And I was clearing the cache and doing things like that. And sometimes, and for me, it worked. But for her, they had to reset the account because of too many attempts also. But once they did that, it still took some time to get through it. But we got into her account and it worked. And we did submit her actual submission of the forms went a lot easier than mine. Mine kept freezing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But first time I put her picture in, it accepted everything else, and it went through and it was fine. So if anybody's going to do it and can wait till March and doesn't have any immediate travel plans where they need to have an issue, I highly recommend that you go with that once it works, because they don't have to send your passport in. They do void it. Once you submit your application, your old passport is no longer any good except for identification. It can't be used for travel.
Yep.
But good system. I mean, you could tell the guy says, yeah, we've been working on this for a while and we just introduced it and it's going as well as we expected it to. But they said the reception has been great. That once it works, it's great. So costs the same as going through the post office or mailing it. So.
Well,
Remember,
not the same. You don't have the waiting lines.
True, but I mean it's still $130.
no, you're waiting in chair.
Yeah.
You wait in chair.
Yeah, so 9 weeks maximum. They're saying now.
Remember, we were talking about how Facebook, Meta is asking, not how they were laying off managers because they had too many managers managing managers who managing managers. Listen to this article. Meta is asking many of its managers and directors to transition to individual contributor jobs or leave the company. as part
Mm.
of a process to become a more efficient organization. N- It's not,
Individual contributor? What does that
yeah,
mean?
it says individual contributor.
Yeah, you are not the manager anymore. You are the worker bee,
Uh,
and
Known internally as flattening. Higher level managers are sharing the directive with their reports in the coming weeks, separate from the company's regular performance review process, which is also occurring. Interesting.
I have a suggestion for them from employee morale. Don't put those managers into the same department with the people they used to manage.
That's, yeah, well,
I mean, some
I
people could
don't
do
think
it.
they're worried about that.
Well, yeah, well, that's probably going to be a reason.
Yeah,
Leave it that way, and they'll get more people to leave on their own
exactly.
because some people can't handle it.
Yep. And
You mean
Lenovo,
managers?
The managers, yeah,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
people will be like, ha, 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 you're just one of us now.
And besides, those managers probably don't know how to do the job of the regular people who are been
Oh
doing
yeah,
that job for a long time. Lenovo reported a 24% revenue decline for the third quarter, its largest revenue fall in 14 years, as global demand for electronics slumped, and said it would look to cut spending and make workforce adjustments. In 14 years.
I mean, under the covers, the stuff that financial institutions have known for a while is coming out. You see, was it Goldman Sachs just came out and said we're sorry, we didn't lay enough people off in our first wave. We thought that would be enough. And they said, no, we got to lay off more. And they were apologizing to the employees. We didn't realize. But I was thinking about this the other day. The whole, did you see the North Carolina state legislature initiative, how they said that they want to do away with earth science as a requirement for graduation and have computer science as a requirement for
Uh,
graduation for high school? And while I think that's not a bad idea, there's here we go again with learn to code. That's the future where we may not meet as many coders. So Mike Rowe is right again about trades. Trades is where they really, really, really need people, and an apprenticeship is a worthwhile thing to do, and skills that if we have an electromagnetic pulse happen and it takes out all electronics, coders won't know what to do, but welders and all these other jobs will. So we'll need that. Interesting.
yeah. Um, Back to ChatGPT. OpenAI, the startup behind ChatGPT, says it is developing an upgrade to its viral chatbot that users can customize as it works to address concerns about bias in artificial intelligence. The San Francisco based startup, which Microsoft has funded and used to power its latest technology, said it has worked to mitigate political and other biases, but also wanted to accommodate more diverse views. This will mean allowing system outputs that other people, ourselves included, may strongly disagree with, offering customization as a way forward. Still, there will always be some bounds on system behavior. ChatGPT released in never mind, and they grew up really big. Um, but they found that it has biases, which is
Well,
what you
the
talked
bias
about.
that is discussed is not they found there is biases. It's there is this discussion in AI is about the data set that is being fed to
Correct.
it,
Yeah.
and not the model. So the model is built the whole idea about AI, what we call AI, and the way it is used today, the technology itself, is that the engineers that do not necessarily understand how it comes up with the question, because the way it is uh, making the decisions is based on learning from a data set that is fed into a matrix of filtering and decision making. Okay. Now I understand it sounds amorphic because it's not a something very simple like if I have a zero and a one, when do I come up with
Right.
a zero or one?
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot more complex than that. And so the systems that are being built, there is no, you cannot convert them to regular programming, right? You cannot convert them to an if or logic type of workflow. So there's no workflow diagram that you will see and say, okay, I understand how it came up with that decision. So it's all based on the data that is being fed into the system and the training that it goes through, which means how does this identify whether this is the correct answer or the wrong answer, right? Whether it is A or B. And that is being taught by some sort of data set, uh, the interpretation of a data set. And that has bias. That creates a bias. If you feed it um, all of the conversation happening inside all of the US prisons, for example,
Hmm.
right? Compared to everything that exists in Wikipedia, you
Right.
will get completely different results, right?
Sure.
And so it is based on what you feed it. And what they're talking about customizing is basically telling it how to interpret it, how to interpret the incoming data. So creating another data set on top of the existing data set that is already being fed that manipulates what is, they're basically putting right and wrong on a spectrum and allowing you to create like a sort of choice, right? Of okay, this is on this side of the spectrum for me. This is on this side of the spectrum. I think it's interesting, but again, it's all about the problem, right? We are facing is when are we going to lose the responsible hand around it, and how will that look like uh when how are we going to be hurt by it, and how are we going to benefit from it? If we're doing it as scholars, as those who want to study a different mindset,
Mhm.
right? How can I converse clearly with somebody who thinks not like me, right? That thinks a bit different. Having a conversation. I've never had um, a conservative friend to have a conversation with. How would that conversation go like, right? Is interesting. But then again, are we going to create a situation where we are siloing ourselves more, or are we going to expand uh, our knowledge of others? So yeah, it's all about the responsibility around it.
Yeah.
Uh, Interesting.
It's very interesting. Absolutely.
I just threw a question to chat AI about Wi-Fi because I was looking at the Netgear site and it talked about Wi-Fi 7, which is an emerging standard, and 6E is out there. So it respond. The first thing it says, my knowledge of my knowledge cutoff date is from September 2021. There is no official
Right.
Wi-Fi 7 standard. So it actually says my knowledge only goes back to,
Yeah.
it ends at 2021. Interesting. It tells you up front.
Yeah. And keep in mind, being one of the fiascos, the public fiascos that went out there, was it uh, um, um, getting into an argument with a user claiming it was still 2022, and
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
hilarious. Reading that was hilarious, and remember, it's based on the same technology, right? They licensed the technology from ChatGPT from OpenAI for Bing, and that's driving Bing. But here is an example of something that wasn't tested. The data set that was provided was flawed, and the result is comic and worrying, right? In the same one, but it shows like how this can go wrong easily. And if you give that any
Yeah.
control, real control, and not just a conversation, how will that look like, right? If
Yeah.
that
Don't type in, tell me how to remove my own appendix.
no, forget that. I don't think that will happen anytime soon. But what if you use that as an aid for a judge?
Oh, I'm saying eventually it'll get there. I can
Right.
think about how technicians can be taught to do procedures that were normally done by a doctor. If they're certified and they have the tools in front of them that can guide them, there's no reason why they can't do it. It would be amazing.
Agree?
I'm all for it. I mean, it would make, but I don't want to put, I would like doctors to be able to concentrate on, the very high level stuff. Um,
So how are you going to make sure that it doesn't make a decision that the person on the
right.
table is not worth saving?
Well, if you're in Antarctica by yourself and your appendix has to come out and there's nobody to help you, you're going to go with whatever it tells you to do.
This is a good time for anybody listening to this show to go back and watch Deep Space Nine, where the it's not on the first. I don't remember. I don't think it was on the first season, but at a certain season they introduced the AI medical assistant.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that actor. He's done a lot of good stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, Robert Picardo
yeah.
is the actor.
I
And
thought
the
he
dilemmas they show there is exactly what we're gonna start facing. It's
And
like,
wasn't he also? Oh gosh, he showed up on other places after this too. He would.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it was good. Yeah. I didn't realize that there was an episode of Deep Space Nine that created a um, holodeck visit to the original James Kirk
Oh,
Enterprise.
yes, with the pebbles? No, what was
It was
those
about
fluffy
tribbles. It
furry
was about tribbles. Yes.
tribbles,
Yeah.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
to go. I didn't see that
I
one.
saw
I
it,
got to go watch
yeah,
it. Oh, it's so good.
fantastic.
all right.
Amnon,
Um,
beam us out.
Yeah.
no,
I'm ready to get out of
no,
here.
I want to hear what's if there's anything that you want to talk about. Cord cutting, anything, any news, any development,
Um,
any.
Nothing that I've followed too much. Plex has been pushing some weird stuff, so just be vigilant in switching off whatever they switch on. um, uh, I may talk. I mean, I can mention one part of cord cutting,
There you go.
which is not it's not media based. Uh, so I mentioned helping out Sarid with email situation, and we were looking of how a company can send out emails and still and not self-host the mail servers themselves because of reputation, because of managing being able to keep the emails trusted. And one of the simplest and cheapest solutions out there, but still backed up with a very good infrastructure and doesn't seem to be going away anyway anytime soon, is AWS simple email send. I think that's or simple email service, SES, where you can
Interesting.
send out, yeah, you can send out up to 60,000 emails a month for free. And after that, every 1,000 emails are just 10 cents,
I'm not
right?
sure I can
So
do that.
you don't need to
Okay.
use the entire
I mean,
quota. You
I
don't
might
need
run
to.
out.
You can do it with only one, But the most important thing is you can make sure that you can send email, right? Very, very easily. And tying it up with some domain service that allows you to route email addresses wherever you want. You can basically use any email solution out there without running a server, or you can run your server, but use these fronts to be trusted by the rest of the internet, um, and still manage to, not pay out of pocket too much, or not at all if you don't exceed quotas. So, and if you do exceed quotas, it's not like paying an arm and a leg. So that much, there's no real need of running your own email server, so sort of anti-cord cutting in a way, but you can.
If you run your own email server and you sending
Mhm.
out 60,000 messages at a time, you are not going to stay a mail server that an effective mail server for
I
long.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And the idea is that the reason I'm quoting the numbers is most of us on the show over here, we're probably sending what, 40 mails out a month,
Maybe.
right? Like sending email out is a rarity these days. We are using a lot of other communications. So we need effective ways of receiving email. And even if we're a business, we're sending what? Uh, 2,000 emails, if that's the formal way of communication we use internally in the business, right? Uh, it's a very viable option. Um, that is
Yeah.
one thing I can recommend on. And setting it up was surprisingly. I mean, there were a lot of steps because there's a lot of T's to dot and a dash and I's to dot, but um, it's clearly laid out the processes. We were doing it with both Cloudflare uh, and Amazon services, and there were very little guesswork or very little knowledge that needed to be beforehand. But as always, it's important to understand how these things interconnect.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's good information.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And by the way, there is another alternative which I think is superior, and that is just picking up the phone, calling Amnon, and setting up something on Delta Force.
No,
Because
I will not allow a company to have their email service. I will not allow them to send
you're
out.
talking about marketing,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I'm not talking about marketing. I'm talking about regular email
Yeah.
service,
Regular
right?
email is
Yeah,
fine.
like still communicating with customers, not marketing stuff, but
Correct.
hey, did you get the right stuff like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so that's what I'm talking about. If you don't want to do it on your own and you don't want to pay an arm and a leg for a service, right?
Yep.
You provide that, and you provide it in a very reasonable. And I mean, I personally, right? I reached out to you when I was
Yeah.
going off Google, and I can say it's solid. So yeah, a free ad for you, Amnon.
Thank you, sir. I'll send a check. All right.
Yeah, but make it 10
It's
times larger than the last one. Zero is just not.
I'll double it. It's that time of day. Anything else anybody has to mention or wants to mention? Not has, wants. No. All right.
Go Pack. I'm going
S-
to the NC State UNC game shortly. So
Oh,
that's all I have to
where
say.
is it?
In PNC Arena.
Well, maybe you drop by after.
Maybe.
Oh,
My only suggestion is to send cash and not checks. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for your contributions.
yep. I've, you have.
Plain envelopes with no markings except the address. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Gal. Thanks, Spence. Thanks, Nick. And Katie, if you're watching, we missed you. Good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie and Dana, Dina, Mati, Eleanor, Sarid, Yaakov and Yael. Thanks, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing. Back up your hard drive and update your virus scanner. Also, remember to go and change the same, if you're using same passwords in different sites, go ahead and change them. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. Now, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., Nick is on Wilmington's 980 The Wave and 107.9 FM with his daily political show and news. You can always tell your Echo device to play 980 The Wave, or you can go to nickcraig.com for the recordings. Tuesdays, 7 p.m., again, Nick and Brian do the Infection Podcast on Twitch. That's survival games and game news in general. So 7 p.m. Tuesday evening, just go to twitch.tv/infectionpod. Have a good week, everybody. We will be back together next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.